Seeing clearly before reacting. Buddhist wisdom. There are moments in life when the hardest thing is not what another person has done, but what awakens in us when it happens. A single word can touch an old pain. A look can disturb a place we thought was already healed. A silence can carry more weight than a long conversation. In such moments, life is no longer only outside us. It is also moving through memory, fear, longing, pride, and the wish to be understood. The Buddha's path does not ask us to become distant from life. It asks us to become more intimate with what is actually happening, to see more carefully, to know the heart at the moment it is touched, to discover whether suffering has to keep moving in the same direction it has always moved. This is where the journey begins, with the simple courage to look more closely. A reaction is often recognized too late. Many people notice it when the voice has already changed, when the sentence has already sharpened, when the message has already been sent, or when silence has already become a wall. These are visible expressions. The root started earlier, close to the body, and deep in intention. The first signs are often physical. The chest tightens, the breath loses rhythm, the jaw locks. A word has not appeared, yet the body has already entered defense. It has received a signal: danger, disrespect, rejection, loss, humiliation. Then the mind searches for meaning. It reaches into memory. Old disappointments attach themselves to the present. One sentence becomes evidence for a whole history. A delayed reply becomes proof of neglect. At that point, the mind is no longer meeting the event directly. It is meeting the world it has built around the event. Some reactions make no sound. A person sits still and answers in a normal voice, while inwardly the heart closes. The mind begins to prepare distance, a cutting sentence, or a silence meant to punish. From the outside, the scene looks controlled. Inside, intention is already taking form. This is why reaction is difficult to detect. It wears reasonable clothing. The mind says, "I need to be honest." It says, "I need to protect myself." It says, "I need to explain this clearly." Each statement has a proper place in life. The training asks us to look beneath the statement and notice the energy that carries it. In the Nibbidhika Sutta, the Buddha teaches, "Intention, I tell you, is kamma." Intending, one does kamma by way of body, speech, and intellect. Speech with a calm tone can carry aggression. Speech with firm words can carry care. Silence can protect wisdom. Silence can also punish. The outer form matters, but it never tells the whole story. Intention gives action its moral direction. A reaction has already begun when speech is prepared as a weapon, when silence is chosen as punishment, or when the mind seeks victory while calling it clarity. This seeing removes the shelter of easy explanation. It asks a person to look beneath the words used for self-justification. A word that harms someone was once a movement in the mind. A cold distance that lasts for days began as a moment when pain chose separation as its language. To see reaction at this level is to begin where the Dhamma points us to begin: intention, contact, feeling, and the inner movement that becomes the life we create. The next question is harder. If this can be understood, why does the old movement still take over? Why can a person know that anger will harm and still speak from anger? Why does wisdom return after the damage instead of arriving when it is needed most? There is a painful contradiction in human life. A person knows the sentence should wait and speaks it. They know the tone will damage trust, and the tone still appears. They know anger brings regret, yet anger still leads the body, the face, and the mouth. This shows the gap between knowing as an idea and seeing while something is alive. A person understands patience and still gets carried by an unpleasant feeling that has not been seen in time. A person values wisdom and still acts from an old habit when a sensitive point is touched. The knowledge in the head often arrives from a distance. It says, "I should be patient." It says, "Anger brings suffering." It says, "I will regret this later." These thoughts are true, but they stand too far from the point where reaction is born. The reaction begins nearer to the body. It begins in feeling. It begins in the first heat, the first pressure, the first contraction, the first push to escape discomfort. An unpleasant feeling appears, and the mind wants relief. It reaches for blame, defense, attack, withdrawal, or control. Outwardly, this looks like a response to another person. Inwardly, it is often an attempt to escape a painful feeling. This is one of the central insights of the entire subject. We often believe we are responding to an event. Much of the time, we are responding to the feeling that the event has produced in us. Someone speaks in a certain tone, and pain appears. Someone stays silent, and fear appears. Someone criticizes us, and heat appears. The event is outside. The feeling is inside. The reaction tries to solve the inside by controlling the outside. In the Vibhanga Sutta, this movement is taught through dependent arising. Contact is a requirement for feeling. Feeling is a requirement for craving. Craving is a requirement for grasping. This becomes concrete in daily life. A sound touches the ear. A message touches the mind. A memory touches the heart. Contact happens. Feeling follows. If the feeling is painful and unclear, craving appears as an urge. Make this stop. Push this away. Defend this image. Then clinging begins. The mind clings to its story. It clings to being right. It clings to its wound. By the time a person says, "I had no choice," many hidden links have already moved. Contact, feeling, the urge to escape or control the feeling, and clinging to a story have already shaped the next word, gesture, silence, or mental fire. This explains why moral knowledge alone often fails to stop reaction. Moral knowledge says, "Do not speak harshly." The body says, "I am under threat." Moral knowledge says, "Be patient." Feeling says, "This pain must end now." In that conflict, the deeper habit usually wins unless mindfulness has been trained to meet the process earlier. The old pattern has speed because it has been repeated many times. A familiar pain appears, and the pattern moves. From the Buddhist perspective, this movement is conditioned. What is conditioned can be studied, and what is studied can be weakened. The practice has to move closer to feeling. Pain must be known before it becomes accusation. Heat must be known before it becomes a sentence. The urge must be known before it becomes identity. This changes the meaning of understanding. Understanding becomes more than, "I know I should not react." It becomes, "I can see how this reaction is being made." That shift matters. Knowing that a reaction is harmful often comes too late. Seeing the process while it forms gives freedom and opening. After an argument, a person says, "I should have been calmer." That reflection has value. A deeper inquiry asks, where did the reaction begin? What did the body feel first? What story did the mind build? What did I want from my words? These questions are instruments of investigation. They bring light into the process, instead of creating another layer of blame. When the chain from contact to feeling, from feeling to craving, from craving to clinging becomes visible, reaction loses some of its mystery. It no longer appears as destiny. It becomes a process that can be known. Many people have already heard enough moral advice. What they need is earlier seeing, early enough to feel the body before the voice changes, early enough to know pain before it becomes accusation. This brings us to the heart of the practice. What does it mean to see clearly? What exactly must be seen? And how do we distinguish clear seeing from forcing ourselves into the appearance of calm? Seeing clearly is easy to misunderstand. Many people hear this phrase and imagine immediate calm, perfect control, or a spiritual image beyond ordinary pain. That misunderstanding creates another burden. A person becomes angry, then judges the anger. A person feels hurt, then feels ashamed for being hurt. The mind performs peace, while the heart remains disturbed. In the Satipatthana Sutta, mindfulness is taught as direct knowing. Here, monks, a monk dwells contemplating the body in body, dedicated, fully aware, and mindful, having put away greed and grief for the world. The same pattern is applied to feelings, mind, and phenomena. This gives clarity a precise meaning, knowing experience in its own terms before the mind decorates it, denies it, or turns it into a weapon. When anger arises, clear seeing simply knows, anger is here. It knows heat in the chest, pressure in the face, tightness in the throat, speed in thought, and the urge to speak. It knows the painful feeling under the anger. It knows the wish to stop discomfort. It knows intention forming around that discomfort. The seeing is plain, and it reaches the point where reaction becomes real. This kind of seeing differs from excessive analysis. Questions about one's past or personality belong to another time. During the rise of reaction, too much analysis adds thought to a mind already burning. Clear seeing begins closer to experience, body, feeling, mind, and intention. Plain knowing has strength. When heat, fear, shame, or the wish to attack is present, it is known directly. This observation gives the mind a position outside the automatic chain. Clarity and suppression must be carefully distinguished. Suppression tries to make the emotion disappear. Clarity allows the emotion to be known. Suppression tightens around experience. Clarity gives enough space for experience to be seen. A person suppressing anger looks peaceful, while resentment grows inside. Another person feels anger clearly in the body, understands its danger, and chooses silence for a short time because speech would cause harm. Their outer appearance looks similar. Their inner quality is different. Forcing calm can become another reaction. First, anger arises toward another person. Then anger arises toward the anger itself. The mind divides. One part burns, another part condemns the burning. One part suffers, another part demands spiritual behavior. This division creates pressure, and pressure easily becomes more speech, more shame, and more hidden resentment. Clear seeing works with another kind of discipline. The emotion is known, and its authority is questioned. Knowing anger gives a chance to stop obeying it. Knowing fear gives a chance to prevent fear from deciding. Knowing hurt gives a chance to keep hurt from becoming a blade. When anger is unseen, it often becomes speech. When anger is seen, it becomes an object of mindfulness. That shift begins the work of freedom. Imagine being criticized in front of others. The face becomes warm. The mind feels exposed. A sentence rises to protect status. Clear seeing knows there is shame, there is fear, there is a wish to regain control. That knowing changes the next breath. The discomfort remains, but it has a smaller chance of becoming harmful action. This is the power of satipatthana in ordinary moments. The practice does not require turning every moment into an inner sermon. It requires recognizing the living process with enough clarity that the process no longer owns us completely. The test of clarity is found in the quality of the mind. With clarity, pain can remain while the mind becomes less rushed. It names what is happening without being swallowed. It senses consequence. It knows whether speech is needed now or later. When the mind forces itself, it becomes hard. It tries to look spiritual. It rejects the emotion. It protects an image of itself. It stays silent while pressure continues to grow. Knowing I should not be angry still stands at a distance from anger. Seeing anger is arising and it wants to become speech, enters the point where anger is working. This is why mindfulness is stronger than self-image. Self-image wants to be a calm person. Mindfulness sees the exact moment calmness has been lost. From that honesty, the path can continue. Once a reaction is seen in this way, another possibility appears. A breath, a short pause, a moment before the sentence takes shape. This pause can feel like losing, surrendering, or giving power to the other person. Yet within that pause, a deeper form of intelligence begins to work. In many situations, the hardest moment is the pause. Something has been said. The body is ready. The mind has gathered evidence. The words are near the tongue. A part of us believes that speaking immediately will protect dignity, restore control, or force understanding. Waiting feels dangerous because reaction promises relief. Reaction creates movement and releases pressure for a short time. The pause asks us to stay with pressure without throwing it outward. It asks the mind to remain present long enough to know what kind of action is being prepared. The pause is one of the most morally important spaces in human life. It is where intention can be examined before it becomes karma. It is where speech can be tested before it enters another person's heart. It is where pain can be held long enough to avoid passing it forward. There are different kinds of silence. Some silence comes from fear, resentment, confusion, or exhaustion. It can look restrained while suffering continues inside. Another form of silence comes from clear awareness. It knows the heat of the moment. It knows the urge to speak. It knows the harm that may come from the next sentence. It recognizes that even a correct statement, spoken from an unsteady mind, can injure rather than help. This silence is active. It observes, measures, and protects. It keeps speech in view and waits until speech can serve understanding. In the Ambalatthika Rahula Sutta, Rahula is trained in a discipline of reflection. The question is framed this way: this verbal action I want to do, would it lead to self-affliction, to the affliction of others, or to both? The same principle is applied to bodily and mental action. If an action leads to harm for oneself, for others, or for both, it is to be avoided or abandoned. The teaching is direct enough for a young disciple and deep enough for a lifetime. This training places wisdom inside the stream of life. The next word, the next gesture, the next reply, the next refusal, the next silence. All of them become material for reflection. What is the intention? What will this action do? Will it reduce suffering or pass suffering onward? This reflection feels slow at first because the habit of reaction is fast. Speed and wisdom are different capacities. Many harmful words are spoken quickly. Many regrets are born from a moment that felt urgent. The pause gives wisdom enough time to enter the body, the mouth, and the decision. There is still responsibility. If harm is occurring, silence becomes avoidance. If a boundary must be set, endless delay creates confusion. If truth needs to be said, hiding behind calmness protects comfort rather than wisdom. The pause keeps us present in life while giving enough room to check whether the next action is driven by a blind force. Buddhist restraint is sometimes misunderstood as passivity. In the path, restraint is a strong form of care. It holds action long enough for wisdom to choose a direction. A person who pauses appears silent for a few seconds. Inside, the body is being felt. Feeling is being known. Intention is being examined. And consequence is being considered. This is ethical intelligence rooted in the understanding that actions have results. The same teaching also gives a way to learn from failure. Reflection after action matters. If harsh speech has already happened and the harm is seen later, the training has not ended. That later seeing becomes part of the path. One can admit, repair, learn, and return to mindfulness with greater honesty. The pause is where an unwholesome action can lose strength. It is where the body feels heat and the mouth does not immediately obey. It is where a person begins to discover a freedom deeper than winning the conversation. When clarity matures through the pause, it cannot remain private. It has to become a way of speaking, acting, setting boundaries, and living. Silence prepares the ground. Wise response is where the training becomes visible. A clear mind does not always remain silent. Some moments call for waiting. Some moments call for speech. Some moments call for a boundary. Some moments call for leaving. The Buddhist path asks for discernment rather than a fixed behavior applied to every situation. A wise response may sound calm, firm, brief, or direct. It says, "This is harmful." It says, "I cannot continue this conversation in this way." It says, "I need time before I answer." The outer form depends on the situation. The inner source has to be known. The important inquiry is where the action comes from. Does it come from the wish to punish? Does it come from the need to win? Does it come from clarity, care, truth, and the wish to reduce harm? Two people can say the same sentence with different intentions behind it. One sentence cuts. The same words, spoken from another mind, protect. In the 𝐿·Rajakumara Sutta, speech is guided by a demanding standard. The Tathagata knows the right time to speak so as to explain what he knows to be true, meaningful, and beneficial. Truth is examined together with benefit and timing. Speech is measured by purpose and effect. This is where the earlier insight about honesty belongs. In the heat of anger, truth can be used carelessly. A fact can be accurate and still be spoken at the wrong time. A correction can be valid and still be driven by the wish to humiliate. 𝐿·Rajakumara Sutta gives a more demanding standard. Is it true? Is it beneficial? Is this the time? What mind is speaking? A word that is true, beneficial, and timely can still be difficult to hear. Compassion does not always sound pleasing. The same discourse uses the image of removing something dangerous from a child's mouth. The act can bring distress in the moment, but its purpose is protection. In the same way, wise speech may challenge, correct, or set a boundary. Its purpose is to protect what is wholesome, truthful, and beneficial. For a layperson, this teaching enters ordinary life through ordinary moments. It enters the kitchen, the car, the inbox, the meeting room, the family conversation, and the online argument. A person living with work, money, obligations, and relationships has fewer conditions for seclusion than a monk. Still, the field of practice is present wherever contact, feeling, intention, speech, and action arise. Seeing clearly before reacting is a training. At first, the reaction is often seen afterward. Regret appears, and understanding arrives late. If that seeing is honest, it has value. Later, the reaction is seen while it is happening. One hears the tone and recognizes the heat inside it. Later still, the reaction is seen before speech begins. The body tightens, the feeling is known, intention is sensed, and the old movement no longer has full control. This is how freedom grows in daily life. It grows through earlier seeing, through the humility to study one's own reactions, through the discipline of pausing long enough for intention to be known, and through the practice of speaking when speech can serve truth and benefit. In this freedom, pain still appears, but it is known before it becomes cruelty. Anger still arises, but it is seen before it takes control of speech. Fear still moves, but it is recognized before it turns one moment into a complete story about oneself, another person, or the world. The Dhamma is precise because it begins at the root. It brings attention beneath visible behavior to the intention that shapes it. It asks us to know contact, feeling, craving, clinging, intention, speech, action, and result. It asks us to see the chain clearly enough that the chain no longer governs the heart in darkness. The next reaction may appear as heat in the body, pressure in the chest, a sentence forming in the mouth, or a message waiting to be sent. That moment seems small. In the Dhamma, small moments often reveal the real path. A future of suffering can depend on whether that moment is seen. The practice is to stop waiting for a life where nothing touches us. The practice is to meet the moment of being touched with enough awareness to know what is being born. In the narrow space where feeling has not yet become reaction, the path of freedom begins.